Not only, of course, was this the biggest free agency signing in Sacramento Kings history, getting DeMar DeRozan. And yes, even though it's a sign and trade, I do consider it free agency because DeMar was here in Sacramento all day long. The Kings, yes, they had to negotiate a deal to free up enough money to bring DeRozan here, but they were negotiating with DeMar directly about the amount of money that they would pay him, and he had to agree to have that sign and trade go through to come here in Sacramento. To me, this is a free agency acquisition, and not only is it the biggest in Sacramento Kings history, this is one of the best and biggest days in Sacramento Kings history, period. Check this out. It starts with Malik Monk officially signing his new deal with the Kings, his new 4-year deal. Yes, we've known about this deal for a couple of weeks now, but he officially signed it. He put pen to paper today, so Malik Monk is back, right? Then you get a 6-time All-Star in DeMar DeRozan to choose Sacramento, the Kings, over Los Angeles and the Clippers, who were reportedly making a big pitch for him. And this isn't just the Los Angeles Clippers. This is the brand new stadium Los Angeles Clippers with Kawhi Leonard and James Harden on their roster, right? That is a very, very talented team that DeMar could have easily chosen to go to. Not to mention LA is home for DeMar DeRozan, but no, he chose to sign here in Sacramento. One, if that doesn't tell you that the culture is changing here in Sacktown and how Sacramento and the Kings are perceived around the league, if that doesn't say that to you, I don't know what can possibly prove to you otherwise. And number two, Monte McNair knows what the hell he's doing, right? I've seen the criticisms of McNair, and believe me, his work isn't finished, right? In fact, the Kings are still in a position to do more this offseason if they want to, and they very well could do more. There's some who believe the Kings will do more. So Sacramento's not done. Monte McNair's not done. But what he's been able to do to get this franchise out of the playoff drought, to pull off the Domantas Sabonis trade that he pulled off, then on top of that, to convince Malik Monk not just to sign for the first time, but to re-sign here in Sacramento and to make that decision early. And you're going to hear from Malik Monk on this podcast. He explains why he made that decision early for Sacramento. And then to follow that up with signing a 6-time All-Star in DeMar DeRozan and taking him away from his hometown in Los Angeles. Boy, I mean, Monty has hit, I mean, time will tell if this is a home run or not, right? We haven't seen it on the floor yet. I believe it's going to work. I believe the Sacramento Kings got significantly better today with this news, but we haven't seen it in action, so I can't necessarily call it a home run yet. But Monte McNair is doing here in Sacramento what very few, in fact, none, have been able to do before, and he deserves recognition and his flowers for that. So here's the whole DeMar DeRozan sign and trade that the Kings pulled off. A 3-team deal involving, of course, the Sacramento Kings, the Chicago Bulls, and the San Antonio Spurs. So the Kings get DeRozan on a 3-year, $74 million deal. Now, because of the sign and trade rules, the contract had to be a minimum 3 years. 3 years, $74 million. We don't know how that is split up. We don't know if the majority of the money is in the front of the contract and it gets cheaper as DeMar gets older. We don't know if the contract is backloaded, so it's cheaper early on. We don't know if it's evenly split throughout the 3 years. Plus, there are bonuses worked into this contract as well with both individual and team achievements that the Sacramento Kings could have or DeMar DeRozan could have over the next 3 years. So that is the deal. Meanwhile, the San Antonio Spurs take Harrison Barnes and his $18 million per year that he's being paid over the next couple of years, and an unprotected 2031 pick swap, meaning the Kings are not giving the Spurs a pick. In 2031, the 2031 draft, whichever team has the better pick, the Spurs get to choose that pick. So let's say the Kings are the better team than San Antonio. Well, the Spurs will just keep their pick. But if by 2031 the Spurs, who will have maybe Victor Wembanyama as the best player in the league at that time, let's say the Spurs are one of the top teams in the league and the Kings are just outside the lottery. Okay, the Spurs will take the Kings pick because it's better in that sense. So the Kings did not lose a draft pick, a first-round pick in this deal, but they will swap their draft rights in 2031 with San Antonio. And then the Chicago Bulls get Chris Duarte and a couple of second-round picks in the deal. So the Kings did not have to give up a lot at all in order to bring DeMar DeRozan here. I'm going to talk about Harrison Barnes in a little bit because he's an absolute pro, and I'm going to miss him. We're going to miss him here in Sacramento. I'll talk about him more in a second. But a astronomical upgrade between Harrison Barnes and DeMar DeRozan in so many different ways, and you didn't have to give up assets in order to accomplish that. So, like I said, the Kings might not be done. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. But I want to talk about DeMar DeRozan, of course. There's so many things about DeMar that we could talk about. And believe me, we're going to hash out these conversations over the next few weeks. Hell, we have months to fill before we'll actually see DeRozan in a Kings jersey. So we have plenty of time to talk more and more in depth about how DeMar will fit with certain players and in Mike Brown's system and blah, blah, blah. But I want to address two things with DeMar, at least tonight. Number one is his age. DeMar will be 35 by the time this season starts. So he's up there in years, right? 35 is pretty old by NBA standards. That means he will be well on his way to 38 by the time this deal comes to an end. I think it's fair to say that the best years of DeMar DeRozan are behind him. But that's okay for this Kings team because they're not signing DeMar DeRozan to bring him in to be the absolute superstar like the Toronto Raptors looked at him as when they were trying to win a title a handful of years, 6+ years ago, right? That's not the DeMar DeRozan that the Sacramento Kings are looking for. However, the Kings are looking for DeMar to be similar to what he has been not just over his entire career, but especially recently as he's past 30. DeMar has averaged 20 or more points per game in his last 11 straight seasons. On top of that, the last 3 seasons, he has played 74 or more games. He played 79 games last season, averaging 36 minutes per game. This guy is playing all the time, and he's playing a boatload of minutes every single night. He has not missed he has not played less or fewer than 60 games in a season in his career. He is available. And, I'm going to back up a little bit. Over the last 3 seasons, by the way, that he's been over 30 and playing 70-plus games at 36 minutes per game, he's averaging 25 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists over those 3 seasons. So he's still putting up numbers, and he's still efficient despite being this old. I mentioned the fewest amount of games in a season he has played in his career is 60. He's played 70 or more games, 11 seasons of his career. So I'm not worried about DeMar DeRozan's age. I'm not worried about DeMar DeRozan's availability. I'm not worried about DeMar DeRozan's injury history because there really is none. He plays and he puts up numbers and he provides the Sacramento Kings with a lot of what they need. That transitions us into the second thing that I want to talk about, which is DeMar DeRozan's fit. It is absolutely fair to question DeMar DeRozan's fit in the Kings offense because it's not seamless, right? You think, what do you surround De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis with? Shooters, guys that space the floor, that stay out of their way and can knock down 3-point shots. We've seen that over the last couple of years in Sacramento, and it turns out the Kings have needed more. The Kings have needed more of what DeMar DeRozan can provide them.